At its imperial peak, Rome may have held roughly 1 million people, a population no nearby patchwork of farms could reliably feed on its own. There were no trucks, no refrigeration, and no railway timetable warning that breakfast was running late. Yet grain crossed seas, changed ships, entered warehouses, met inspectors, reached millstones and emerged as bread day after day. This was not one perfect government pipeline, and not every sack followed exactly the same route. It was a layered supply network, and its 8 most visible steps explained how an ancient inland capital kept eating. Step 1 began far beyond Rome's walls, because a giant city had outgrown what its immediate countryside could guarantee. Official material from Ostia named Sardinia, Sicily, Egypt, and North Africa, among the major grain-producing regions tied to the capital's supply. Their importance changed over time, and local Italian farms still mattered, so there was never one timeless pie chart of Roman wheat. What mattered was reach. Harvests, taxes, contracts, merchants, landowners, and laborers could turn distant surplus into urban food before a loaf became Roman. The empire first had to make somebody else's field part of the capital's daily routine. Step 2 put the harvest aboard large merchant ships built for the Mediterranean rather than the shallow river beside Rome. The grain traveled mostly in perishable fiber sacks, which is one reason archaeology preserves less packaging than it does for wine or oil amphorae. A voyage joined provincial ports, ship owners, sailors, contracts, weather, and seasonal risk into a single moving bed. Storms or delay could not be solved by sending a replacement truck down another highway. Rome's food security therefore began with ships it did not fully control, carrying cargo the city could not casually do without. Step 3 solved a geographic problem. Rome stood inland, while the old river-mouth harbor at Ostia could not comfortably receive every growing merchant ship. Limited anchorage, flooding, and the need for safer deep water pushed Emperor Claudius to establish Portus in the 1st century. Trajan later added the famous hexagonal basin, more quays, canals, and extensive warehouses. But Portus did not simply replace Ostia. The two towns remained connected by water and road and worked as complementary parts of the same harbor zone. Rome's answer to a bottleneck was not one bigger doorway, it was a network of doors. Step 4 was the handoff. A deep-water merchant vessel could cross the sea, but it was the wrong machine for the final inland route at Ostia or Portus. Grain was unloaded or transferred into smaller rivercraft, known as caudicariae. That meant sacks, ramps, ropes, shoulders, counting balance, and enough coordination to keep cargo moving between two vessels without modern cranes or containers. The transfer was not a decorative pause between sea and city, it was the hinge that connected two different transport worlds. If this step stopped, the Mediterranean could be full of wheat, and Rome could still be short of bread. Step 5 sent the smaller craft through the harbor waterways and onto the Tiber, the final bulk route toward the inland capital. Some boats stopped at Ostia's river port, others continued toward Rome, carrying cargo that was now close enough to matter, but not yet useful to a hungry household. The river joined Portus, Ostia, warehouses, landings, and the city, but it also created another place where congestion, weather, and handling could slow the chain. Ancient logistics rarely moved in a straight line. It moved where water, depth, dock, space, and human effort allowed it. The grain was approaching Rome, one smaller boatload at a time. Step 6 turned the moving cargo into accountable cargo, and that required more than an official standing near a pile of sacks. Ostian images preserve the sicariae, porters carrying heavy sacks on their shoulders, and the mensors, frumentarii, specialists associated with grain measurement, inspection, sorting, transport, and storage, were supervised by officials of the Annona, the administration responsible for keeping supplies flowing toward Rome. Private merchants, and many kinds of workers, still mattered. So, this was not a single state-owned conveyor belt. The system worked because muscle moved the grain, while measurement made the movement legible. Step 7 bought time. Grain could not move directly from every arriving ship into every oven, so the ports needed warehouses that managed both flow and spoilage risk. At Ostia, Major Hore placed storage cells close to the river and raised some floors on small brick pillars. The gap beneath helped ventilation and protected grain from moisture rising through the ground. These buildings did not all have one owner or one purpose. Research shows a spectrum of public, private, local, and bulk transfer functions. A warehouse was therefore more than a room full of sacks. It was a buffer between an unpredictable sea and an impatient city. Step 8 transformed stored grain into something urban Romans could actually eat. At Ostia, commercial bakeries combined milling, kneading, baking, and selling. The well-preserved mill of Silvanus stood directly connected to the great warehouses nearby. Some grain was processed at Ostia. Other supplies continued toward Rome. There, mills, bakers, shops, private markets, and public distributions served different groups. The annona mattered deeply to political stability, but not every resident received an identical state loaf. By the time bread reached a hand, it hid fields, sailors, harbors, river crews, porters, measurers, officials, warehouse workers, millers, and bakers. Rome did not eat because one emperor ordered breakfast. Thousands of connected actions kept the city fed. The 8 steps are an explanation, not a claim, that every grain sack in every century followed one identical route, but the surviving ports, warehouses, mosaics, bakeries, and administrative records revealed the larger truth clearly. Rome's size depended on distant harvests, engineered harbors, private trade, public supervision, and an enormous amount of mostly anonymous labor. The marble capital was only the visible end of the machine. Its foundations stretched across fields, water, docks, storerooms, and ovens. The next time ancient Rome looks impossibly grand, picture the grain sack that had to arrive before the spectacle could begin.